Coming up on Arirang News. In South Korea, at least 50 people have been killed or gone missing after days of torrential rain. Tonight, we go to Chungcheongbuk-do province, one of the hardest hit areas. President Yoon stresses through extended deterrence over escalating threats, it should be made that North Korea does not even dare use nuclear weapons. This during the first South Korea-US Joint Nuclear Consultative Group meeting held in Seoul. The South Korean government lodges an appeal against a recent ruling by an international arbitration court to compensate US-based hedge fund Elliott Management with over $100 million for losses over a 2015 Samsung merger. The Justice Ministry says the order violates the jurisdiction according to the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start this evening with the damage from the torrential rain here in South Korea. The number of people either dead or missing is climbing, now up to at least 50. This with another downpour expected for the weekend. Choi Min-jung has the latest.
At least 44 people have been killed and 6 are still missing following the heavy downpours in South Korea. And as of 6 p.m. Tuesday, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters data shows that 35 have been injured, with over 13,000 having had to evacuate their homes. On Tuesday, 3 more bodies of those reported missing were found in Yecheon-gun County, Gyeongsang-buk-do province. A man in his 60s who went missing after a landslide was found dead on Tuesday afternoon. The body of a woman in her 70s was also found under a pile of trees, and another woman in her 60s who went missing after being swept by rain in a car was also found dead on the same day. Yecheon-gun County has been one of the regions hit hard by heavy rain and landslides. For a bit of respite, the rain is expected to stop from Wednesday through Friday. However, the country is expecting to see another downpour over the weekend. People in the capital region, Chungcheongbuk-do province, and Gangwon-do province should keep watch as rain is forecast to pound the areas. Meanwhile, search and rescue efforts at the site of the flooded underpass in Osong in Cheongju City, Chungcheongbuk-do province, came to an end on Monday night. The Office for Government Policy Coordination has started an investigation to determine the cause of the tragic incident that killed 14 people. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Now, more on the fallout from the rain. Korea's Chungcheongbuk-do province is one of the hardest hit areas. Our Choi Soo-young takes a closer look on the rain damage and recovery works there.
Heavy rain in Chungcheongbuk-do province has meant that the central part of the country is one of the most affected, alongside Chungcheongnam-do and Gyeongsang-nam-do provinces. Here in Gyeongsang County in Chungcheongbuk-do province, a total of over 400 millimeters rain has dropped since July 13. Flooding has caused serious damage to the fields and crops. This massive flooding was caused by the Gyeongsang Dam, overflowing for the first time in 43 years, leading to the evacuation of around 6,000 residents. According to officials, approximately 600 residential and commercial facilities collapsed, and the agricultural land damage area is estimated to be around 27 square kilometers, 8 times larger than Central Park in New York. People who have been affected don't know what to do next.
This place used to be our workplace, but everything is gone. Nothing is left. The water filled that greenhouse all the way to the end. I only just got myself out at 4 a.m. I'm relieved to just be alive.
Helpers are reaching out from all over the country, and volunteers and nearby military personnel are being mobilized to carry out emergency disaster recovery.
A couple of days ago, I saw a news report about the horrible damage due to heavy rainfall in Chungcheongdo province, which made me deeply sad. So I've decided to do volunteer work. As soon as I arrived, I noticed that everything, even the containers, is being washed away. In any case, such incidents should never happen again.
Although the water that flooded the fields has receded, the continuous rainfall is making the recovery efforts challenging. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, heavy rainfall of 100 to over 150 millimeters per hour is expected in the Chungcheongbuk-do region until Wednesday. Officials consider Thursday and Friday as the optimal time for recovery efforts. 최수형, Arirang News, Hwaesan.
President Yoon says he'll stop the misuse of government subsidies, and instead, those will be used to help recovery efforts in flooded areas. Also, for more support, the authorities are speeding up to designate special disaster zones. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol said Tuesday that he will put a stop to the misuse of government subsidies and use those funds to help with recovery efforts from the recent flooding, emphasizing disaster relief is a priority for taxpayers' money. Speaking at a cabinet meeting, the president said all available resources will be utilized for a speedy recovery, including through the designation of special disaster zones.
가능한 빠른 시일 내에 피해 지역을 특별 재난 지역으로 선포하고 복구 인력, 재난 관련 재원, 예비비 등 정부의 가용 자원을 모두 동원하겠습니다.
Local media outlets have been reporting that the official designations of the heavily damaged regions as special disaster zones are being expedited and could be announced as early as Wednesday. According to the top office's spokesperson, the president said, quote, "These are the emergency situations that the government tightened its monetary policies for, so don't hold back and make it feel as if the government is overdoing it." The president also called for the nation's disaster management program to be completely overhauled as extreme weather conditions have become the norm, and the current system isn't sufficient enough to prevent and manage potential disasters.
천재지변이니 어쩔 수 없다. 이런 인식은 버려야 됩니다. 평소에도 체계적으로 작동할 수 있는 디지털 모니터링 시스템을 갖춰야 됩니다. 중앙정부와 지방정부가 범정부 차원에서 협업하고 전문가들이 참여해야 됩니다.
Adding that the monsoon season is yet to be over, with more heavy rain expected in the next few days, he called on relevant agencies and first responders to continue to be on their toes. In the meantime, for the second day straight, he visited a disaster site, this time in Chungcheongbuk-do province, where flooding caused damage to agriculture and livestock. There, he met with soldiers deployed for restoration of the farms while promising those displaced from their homes that, quote, a lot of the budget will be injected. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
As the South Korean government rushes to declare monsoon-affected regions as special disaster zones, our Kim Jong-shin explains what the declaration means and what changes it brings.
An area can be declared a special disaster zone by the president when there has been a serious natural or social disaster in South Korea, and the declaration becomes effective immediately.
Disaster declaration can quickly authorize the support programs such as providing short-term relief and recovery of the affected area. The state or local governments can provide special administrative, fiscal, financial, and medical support necessary for the emergency responses.
A director general at the Safety Ministry who takes charge following the declaration told Arirang News what support is given to the affected regions.
In the case of a general disaster, 70% of the recovery costs are paid for out of the national budget, depending on the financial capability of the local government. If an area is declared a special disaster zone, up to 80% of the cost will be funded by the central government.
There's additional support for residents as well.
In addition to state support for local governments, there are various financial programs for individuals in the affected region, including relief on, for example, vehicular tax and medical insurance. Residents will also be given discounts on utility fees for gas and electricity.
The director added that in general disasters, people who have lost their homes are provided with up to $28,000 from the state. In the case of death, around $15,000 is given to the bereaved family. But if a region is declared a special disaster zone, an additional $15,000 is given to the bereaved family and $7,000 more to those who lost their homes. The Yoon administration previously declared the Itaewon area a special disaster zone following the crowd crush disaster there last Halloween that saw 159 people killed. Pohang and Gyeongju cities in Gyeongsangbuk-do province were declared a special disaster zone last September after Typhoon Himnanor hit them, killing at least 11 people. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington ramp up their commitment to extended deterrence against North Korea, kicking off their first session of the Nuclear Consultative Group here in Seoul. And for the first time in decades, an American nuclear submarine visits Busan. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea and the United States have launched a bilateral platform to take a unified nuclear response to North Korean threats, deemed an unprecedented step for Washington since the days of the Cold War. On Tuesday, Seoul's Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho and his US counterpart Kurt Campbell co-chaired the inaugural meeting of the Nuclear Consultative Group in Seoul.
We discussed ways to jointly respond to North Korea's nuclear threats. We also decided to materialize nuclear and strategic planning and provide mechanisms and the architecture that can expand information sharing on nuclear and conventional forces.
According to Kim, the first meeting focused on creating a secure dialogue channel and identified 5 main areas for continual discussion, including the Allies' joint planning and nuclear posture and how to operate Washington's nuclear assets with Seoul's non-nuclear assets together, deploying US strategic assets to the south, along with crisis management and training nuclear experts in South Korea. The NCG was formed as part of Presidents Yoon and Biden's Washington Declaration in April, after North Korea launched an unprecedented number of missile tests last year, and experts warned that a 7th nuclear test could be imminent. With recent public opinion surveys finding over 70% feel the need for South Korea to develop its own nuclear weapons, Seoul and Washington in April agreed to bolster their joint capabilities and confidence in executing the US extended deterrence policy of defending allies who fall under conventional or nuclear attack.
We have not done anything like this since early periods in the Cold War, but it is a testament to several things. One, we understand the challenges here and how important it is to send a signal of commitment and confidence. Second, it is the nature of the strength of our alliance and partnership with South Korea.
Both Kim and Campbell stressed that any nuclear attack by the North against the South will be met with a swift, overwhelming and decisive response, resulting in the end of the Kim Jong-un regime. Also, as security cooperation efforts with Japan continue, Campbell did not rule out the expansion of the NCG to other areas or countries, though emphasizing that the laser-sharp focus right now would be bilateral. On that note, Deputy Advisor Kim said that a trilateral summit with Japan is being arranged for August in Washington, D.C., with the agenda to cover regional and economic security, after which the NCG will convene a working-level meeting. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
A U.S. citizen has crossed the military demarcation line separating the two Koreas without authorization from the South Korean side into the north during a tour of the joint security area. That's according to the U.S.-led UN command on Tuesday. It says the person is believed to be in North Korean custody, adding it is working with the North's army to resolve the incident. No further details were given about the person. South Korea has decided to make financial contributions to the reconstruction of Ukraine. On the sidelines of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting in India on Tuesday, Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho discussed ways to rebuild Ukraine with the chiefs of global financial institutions. Chu met with the president of the World Bank and expressed his support for the bank's ongoing aid to Ukraine. The finance minister also vowed to provide $10 million to the World Bank's Ukraine relief within this year. World Bank's chief in response acknowledged that South Korea's experience in rebuilding the country after the devastating Korean War would be invaluable in reconstruction efforts. South Korea lodges an appeal against a recent international arbitration court ruling to compensate U.S. hedge fund Elliott management with over $100 million. The government says the order violates the jurisdiction according to the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. Our Lee Dae-yeon has more.
The Justice Ministry has filed an appeal against an international tribunal's ruling ordering the government to pay $108.5 million in damages to Elliott Investment Management. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands delivered its judgment last month in the investor-state dispute settlement suit that the New York-based activist fund filed in 2018. Elliott had demanded $770 million from the South Korean government, including delayed interest payments and legal fees. However, Seoul was ordered to pay $108.5 million. This suit stems from the 2015 merger of two Samsung Group affiliates, Samsung C&T Corporation and Taylor Industries, with a state-run National Pension Service Fund approving of the deal. Elliott had held a 7.1% stake in Samsung C&T and objected to the merger, saying it devalued its share valuation. It filed the investor-state dispute settlement case, claiming that the Park Geun-hye administration had pressured the pension fund to support the deal. The Justice Ministry said on Tuesday that it believed the ruling was contrary to the free trade agreement signed between South Korea and the United States.
We believe that the arbitration tribunal misinterpreted the jurisdiction requirement under the South Korea-US FTA, and this is a legitimate reason for cancellation under British arbitration law.
The ministry also said that the PCA's recognition of the National Pension Service as a national institution in practice was unfair, adding that the court wrongly accused the government of controlling its voting rights. It also brought up the ruling that government action was related to Elliott's investment in Samsung C&T, saying that this was also a wrong accusation. The ministry added that should the government not file an appeal against a ruling, this could expand into a bigger problem such as further investor-state dispute cases possibly filed against other Korean public institutions or public funds. It noted the government will do its best to have the judgment amended and prevent any loss of taxpayers' money. Lee Dae-yeon, Arirang News.
More and more young people in South Korea are choosing to pursue higher education over employment. Data by Statistics Korea on Tuesday show over 70,000 fewer people prepare for job examinations this year, such as the public service exam, than last year. This is the first time in 4 years that the figure has fallen for 2 years in a row. The agency attributed this to more young people deciding to pursue higher education as a result of having had their studies interrupted during COVID-19. Data also showed that roughly 2 out of every 3 young people in employment had quit their first jobs, with the majority choosing to quit as a result of unsatisfactory wages or working hours. Meanwhile, over at the Nat'l Assembly, lawmakers have voted to toughen the punishments for infanticide and the abandonment of infants. This may mean that those who commit such crimes could receive up to life in prison or the death penalty. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
South Korea's National Assembly at its plenary session on Tuesday passed a bill to toughen punishments for infanticide and infant abandonment. The revision seeks to abolish the lesser punishments outlined by the Criminal Act and instead apply the same degree of punishment as murder and abandonment of non-infants. This revision passed the Assembly with 252 approvals and 8 abstentions among 260 lawmakers present. According to the current Criminal Act, those who commit murder against non-infants can receive up to life in prison or even the death penalty. But infanticide currently only carries a punishment of up to 10 years in prison if the crimes are committed in order to, quote, avoid disgrace or for fear of not being able to bring the baby up or for some other extenuating motive. For the abandonment of non-infants, it's up to 3 years in prison. For the same crime committed against infants, only up to 2 years. These articles were included in the Criminal Act back in 1953 when it was first enacted to take into consideration the situations some parents may have found themselves in. But the recent infanticide cases of unregistered babies have instigated public uproar and eventually led to the revision to the part of the act. The revision was brought to the plenary session after passing the Legislation and Judiciary Committee on Monday.
Removing the reduced penalties for crimes against infants for the first time in 70 years would closely protect the infant's right to life.
Now, the past revision is expected to be promulgated at the cabinet meeting in the near future to be enacted 6 months after. The parliament last month passed a bill requiring hospitals to report the birth of newborns to a government agency to prevent abuse of unregistered children. It's also discussing measures to give the option of anonymous births to prevent mothers from giving birth outside of hospitals due to the new registration requirement. Also at Tuesday's session, the Assembly passed a bill approving the appointments of Supreme Court Justice nominees Kwon Young-jun and Seo Kyung-won. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
The climate crisis is going to extremes. Some parts of the globe are grappling with abnormal rainfall, while others are experiencing blistering heat very frequently. Yoon has more.
More countries around the world are experiencing climate events caused by extreme weather conditions. South Korea reaches a 10th day of heavy downpours being called water bombs, which have caused flash floods. Such conditions have caused devastating landslides, flooding of underground infrastructure, and overflowing rivers as the death toll continues to rise across the country. In neighboring Japan, just over this past weekend, the country saw some 414.5 millimeters of rain, an amount over 2 days that was greater than over the entire month of July in previous years. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, June was the hottest June globally in the 174 years of records kept by the agency. The United States was scorched by record heat in the west and south, while the northeast was lashed by rain, causing floods, and the Midwest was choked by wildfire smoke. California's Death Valley, that's been dubbed the hottest place on Earth, reached 54 degrees Celsius on Sunday. In coping with such extreme heat and in preventing climate-related deaths, countries in the Middle East like the United Arab Emirates have imposed restrictions on working outdoors between 12:30 p.m. and 3 p.m. Health ministries across Europe have issued red alerts, and with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius in Greece, access has been closed to several tourist destinations like the Acropolis Monument. As El Niño returns for the first time in 4 years, which typically increases global temperatures in the year after it develops, the World Meteorological Organization has said there is a 98% likelihood that at least one of the next 5 years, and the 5-year period overall, will be the warmest on record. Yoon, Arirang News.
Rain has tapered off for parts of the Seoul metropolitan area in Gangwon-do province, but some heavy downpours will continue to lash southern parts of the country until tomorrow. As for the amount of rainfall, mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see up to 350 millimeters. For Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces, severe downpours of up to 250 millimeters are in the forecast. For the capital region, rain will subside until Thursday. Another monsoonal rain front will enter the country, causing rain for Jeju Island this coming Friday. Showers will spread nationwide for the weekend. Residents are urged to take safety measures, including evacuating in areas where the risk of landslides and flooding remains high. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gyeongju will be starting off at 23 degrees Celsius. For central regions, sweltering conditions are back in the forecast. Highs in Seoul get up to 32, Daejeon and Gwangju 31, Busan will be reaching 28 degrees. Between Saturday and Sunday, another round of nationwide rain is in the forecast. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Tuesday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the most up-to-date news. Good night.